We are Red Star Report.
Good evening, Red Star Rebels. Well, we're past the May Day weekend protest marathon and Trump's first 100-day mark for just another day of fascism in MAGA America. This is podcast season 5, episode number 7, and we are Red Star Report. And in this edition, for Activism and Action, Shankar Singam takes us to Huntington Beach for an interview with Kris Kluwe, and looking hard at the racist basis for U.S. deportations. The Pedro Baez Report brings us 100 days and counting. In our Pacifica News Update, we will look at some recent news stories you may have missed through a California resistance perspective. And tonight, on Talking Points, can a California resistance trust America's establishment left in the fight against American fascism? But first, the May Day marches, California climate fight is canceled, and the obsolescence of protest in America. All this and more coming up on this episode, so strap up, rebels. I'm Hal Lohr, we are Red Star Report, and this is Voices for the California Nation.
I know it's an international movement, right? It happens on an annual basis. I've never come out, but I decided, this year we got to stand up. We got to get out here with the people because, again, solidarity, the collective, is the power that we need to really make things happen.
If it takes 4 years, we'll be out here 100 times, whatever it takes. But more people should be out on the streets protesting. You don't understand what's happening, and the Constitution's being trampled on, and we need to take our rights back.
This is Voices for the California Nation, now apparently considered a voice of the enemy within, coming to you from a legally suppressed and all but occupied California nation state. Because even at the very moment that brave souls across America and up and down California marched and rallied in symbolic gestures of May Day solidarity, the federal government moved to specifically strip Californians of their right to breathe clean air and to regulate the environment we and our children live in. You see, while the American traditional left reveled in their moment of self-satisfaction through righteous indignation, the U.S. House of Representatives approved House Joint Resolution 88 to block California from implementing plans for a 2035 limit on new gasoline-powered cars. In a 246 to 164 vote, which included 35 spineless collaborating U.S. House Democrats who joined with Republicans in passing Resolution 88, California's right to environmental self-determination was quietly canceled, while the nation was May Day distracted. And to add injury to insult, the House also approved 2 other measures to withdraw Nixon and Reagan-era California EPA waivers for California's nation-leading plans to increase sales of zero-emission trucks, along with the state's latest nitrogen oxide emission standard for engines. By passing these resolutions, in according with Trump's MAGA America drill baby drill fossil fuel industry-based energy policies, the House made it clear they consider the right of Californians to regulate their air quality and strive for a healthy planet to be just part of a radical left agenda that the American federal government can cancel on a whim. Following Thursday's vote, Newsom's office issued a statement saying Trump Republicans are hell-bent on making California smoggy again, and the only thing that's changed is that big polluters in the right-wing propaganda machine have succeeded in buying off the Republican Party. In a separate statement, California Senator Alex Padilla said House Republicans' misguided and cynical attempts to gut the Clean Air Act and undercut California's climate leadership ignores the reality of California's strength as the 4th largest economy in the world. And if the Senate take up these measures under the Congressional Review Act, they will be going nuclear, all to baselessly attack California. This is my surprised face. All this while thousands of people again unknowingly congratulated themselves on sending yet another massive protest message of progressive solidarity to protect our rights. Protests like the hands-off protest and now the May Day marches that the federal government obviously feels no need to acknowledge anymore, not if 35 congressional Democrats will happily join with the California haters and stab 40 million Californians in the back for a few bucks from their climate denier donor base anyway. And that'd be where we are as Californians in Trump's MAGA America right now anyway, wouldn't it? A punching bag, waking up in these mornings after May Day to the reality that not only did all the marches, rallies, clever signs, and kumbaya moments do nothing to prevent the further federal cancellation of core California values, but to find that Donald Trump has also signed an executive order in an escalation to America's attack on the right to freedom of speech, canceling all funding for public radio. A move that leaves much of the American airwaves at the mercy of corporate media's Christo-conservative propaganda broadcasting companies. So here we are, stuck living in an America where 40 million Californians in the fourth or fifth largest economy on the world, depending on how you look at it, must arbitrarily suffer the selfish whims of a few of the least evolved, greediest, cruelest, and most superstitiously self-righteous-minded subhumans ever elected to federal office. Evolutionary throwback lesser Americans openly hostile to California who mostly gained power over the lives of Californians in elections where Californians never vote, leaving little recourse but symbolic protest gestures that fascism can ignore, at least until it chooses not to after it outlaws any form of protest as anti-American or anti-religious from America's enemies within, who may soon find themselves targeted for the usual dictatorial oppression measures, all in the name of American freedom to make America great again, leaving nothing but the dwindling hopes of voting in America's constitutionally rigged elections, even if they bother to have them, for a corrupted political system that shows no sign of America ever being any better for the foreseeable future. But I'm sure we all enjoyed the marches, if for nothing else but exercise. This is Voices for the California Nation.
California Resistance Action Item. In these uncertain times of fear and oppression, you can find LGBTQ and transgender crisis support resources at the Los Angeles LGBT Center, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. at 323-860-3799, or online at Center South at lalgbtcenter.org.
The three layers of your control in the modern world. Layer 1, the surface distortions, where you can still see if you look hard enough. Consolidation of information. Almost every major news source, entertainment platform, and social media site is owned by a handful of conglomerates. These entities are not competing. They are coordinating. Information is shaped, not to inform, but to engineer consent. Financial feudalism, that not wealth now controls more people than governments do. Your value is calculated by their ability to service it, not to escape it. Perpetual crisis theater, wars, economic collapses, and health emergencies are increasingly managed as spectacles, not to solve them, but to sustain emergency powers without permanent accountability. None of this is hidden. It is simply buried under 1,000 minor scandals. Layer 2, the structural chokeholds, where critical eyes must strain to trace the pattern. Technocratic capture. Democracy is being slowly strangled, not by a dictator, but by systems too complex for ordinary people to question. Decision-making power is being quietly transferred to unelected corporate, tech, and expert panels. You vote for the face. The machine runs itself. Biopolitical experimentation. The human body is no longer sacred. It is a site of experimentation for surveillance, for control, for economic extraction. Your data is your blood sold without your informed consent. Erasure through overload. Real resistance movements are not censored. They are flooded, buried under manufactured activism that diverts energy into approved channels. The simulation is not shutting you up, it is drowning you out. Layer 3, the whispered abyss, where speculation brushes against the forbidden. Reality fracture management. The frameworks of shared reality are being actively destabilized, not accidentally, but strategically. The goal is not truth or even lies. It is confusion, exhaustion, surrender. Artificial authority. There are serious efforts underway to build systems where human judgment, the messy, ethical, conscious kind, is replaced by algorithmic logic, not to liberate you, to make dissent irrelevant. Sacrificial governance. Policies are being made not for survival, but for managed collapse. The question is no longer, how do we fix the system? The question among elites is, how do we survive the system's inevitable failure while preserving our power? They are not trying to save the world. They are trying to decide who survives it. Final hint. The great lie was never just in what you were told. It was in what you were trained not to ask. When you feel the world's stage plays seem increasingly absurd, contradictory, or hollow, that is not because you are paranoid. It is because you are still awake while others are being lulled into a curated dream of collapse. Those who cannot be hypnotized become dangerous.
People in our country illegally can self-deport the easy way, or they can get deported the hard way, and that's not pleasant. Now my administration is launching the CBP Home app, but if they do not avail themselves of this opportunity, then they will be found, they will be deported, and they will never be admitted again to the United States. Leave now and self-deport voluntarily, and you'll never be back again.
All right, let's escalate as Shankar Singam returns with Activism in Action to take us to Huntington Beach for an interview with Kris Kluwe and looking hard at the racist basis of U.S. deportations. Shankar, you are go for launch.
Hello, my Red Star rebels, renegades, and revolutionaries. How are you doing? Welcome to another episode of Activism in Action, and there was some activism this weekend. I will tell you about that shortly. But I would just first like to ask, how do you all like it? The fast descent, the crash dive into fascism that we are all heading into. Now, we here at Red Star have been telling you this for 4 years now. Since January 2021, we told you this was coming, and it was going to come fast, and it's going to come hard. And the amount of people, the sheer amount of people that is the opposition is incredible. We've been telling you here to prepare to defend yourselves. Because the agenda of this administration is pure white supremacy in every aspect. I don't know how you cannot see that yet. If you cannot see that right now, you're purposely putting on the blinders. This immigration expulsion, they're expelling every immigrant they can because they know that the number of whites is decreasing. And the only way they can catch that up is by getting rid of what they say 100,000 immigrants. It's going to be more than that, folks. They want to get rid of millions. That means naturalized citizens, green card holders. Do not leave the country, because if you cannot come back, they will not get you back here. Listen to what I'm saying. It doesn't matter that you're a citizen anymore. If you're not white and you're not on the right, you're out. They have no qualms with that. Nobody's coming to your rescue. Nobody's coming to get you out of wherever they send you. The fact is, they need you gone so that white supreme reigns. Period. That's why women's right to choose is suspended. States' rights, right? Because they don't want white women having abortions. Get their numbers back up. That's why they're against LGBTQ. Because gay people don't make more kids. They need to get their white numbers back up. And they are succeeding. I mean, I don't know what I would have to say to convince you that That is their agenda. I mean, I think even if they were in Klan robes waving swastikas, you still wouldn't believe me. It's gotten so intense that in Huntington Beach, a stronghold for MAGA, its residents are tired of it. MAGA has a 4-3 majority in the city council, and they're banning books. They're privatizing the public library. They wanted to put a plaque in front of the library dedicating it to MAGA in big letters, MAGA. And the residents have just gotten tired of it, and they came out, and every city council meeting is just, when it's open to the floor, it's tumultuous. And it's a battle. That's how MAGA's coming. And folks, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, I'm talking to you guys, because in the middle between us is a bunch of red. And if you think that they don't count, if you don't think that they're strong enough, they have the rest of the United States to back them up. And they will. And at that point, we'll be fucked. We need to do something about the MAGA here now, before it's too late. I propose let them live out their votes. Meaning, if there's a vote for a tax increase to fund this and this, and they vote against it, and that county votes against it, that county does not get those funds. I'm sick of carrying MAGA. I'm sick of carrying red states. Let them live it out. See how it is. Because we need to employ the same strategy that Trump is employing on all its citizens, starving them out. Prices are about to go really high, folks. So, Huntington Beach. The residents are mad, particularly Kris Kluwe, former punter for the Minnesota Vikings, UCLA, who 15-year resident of Huntington Beach. And I have an interview with him. Great guy. But to give you a clue as to what he's done, you might have seen this in the news before. Here is Kris Kluwe at a city council, Huntington Beach City Council meeting, so you know who he is. Check it out.
Hi, my name's Kris Kluwe, 15-year HB resident. I'm here to speak out against both the plaque and the current city council. As the community made clear at the Library Commission meeting last Tuesday, everyone is in favor of a plaque to celebrate the library, but the vast majority are against including a MAGA acrostic. Okay. Unfortunately, it's clear that this council does not listen, so instead I'm going to take my time to say what MAGA has stood for these past 3 weeks. MAGA stands for trying to erase trans people from existence. MAGA stands for resegregation and racism. MAGA stands for censorship and book bans. MAGA stands for firing air traffic controllers while planes are crashing. MAGA stands for firing the people overseeing our nuclear arsenal. MAGA stands for firing military veterans and those serving them at the VA, including canceling research on veteran suicide. MAGA stands for cutting funds to education, including for disabled children. MAGA is profoundly corrupt, unmistakably anti-democracy, and most importantly, MAGA is explicitly a Nazi movement. You may have replaced a swastika with a red hat. That is what it is. I will now engage in the time-honored American tradition of peaceful civil disobedience. Get the heck. Get out.
And now here's some of the protest and my interview with Kris. Check it out.
So just your name and why are you out here?
Yeah, so my name is Kris Kluwe. I'm a Huntington Beach resident. I'm out here protesting because I don't believe we should have kings or tyrants in charge of our government.
Absolutely. So this is Huntington Beach, usually a conservative city. What do you think about the turnout here today?
I think it's awesome to see this much turnout here in Huntington Beach, because I know a lot of people in the city aren't happy with what's going on, and we give each other strength and power when we show up and say, hey, like, I know Huntington Beach has a bad rep, but we're not all like that. And so we do need to show up and tell people that and show that there are sane people in the city who are not happy with the way things are going.
So MAGA has control. Literally, MAGA has control of the council, I believe, and they're actually leading a charge with other cities suing the state. I mean, it's a bit over the top. I mean, what are the chances of getting them out and getting normal people in?
Well, so a lot of that's going to depend on people showing up and voting. And actually, one of the most important things people can do right now is to be aware of the special election on June 10th and vote to protect our libraries. There's going to be two ballot measures, Measure A and Measure B. Vote yes on both of them to help protect our libraries. Measure A will prevent the book banning board from going into effect. Measure B will make it so if they want to privatize our library, it has to go to a citywide public vote. So we need people to show up for that. Then we need people to show up next year and vote these city council members out.
Unbelievable. Did you ever think you'd be living in a? You always hear about it in the news, they're banning books. Did you ever think you'd be living in the city that's actually happening?
No, I did not. But that's why it's important that we're out here, because this is not what America's supposed to be.
Are you from Huntington Beach, or did you move here?
I grew up in Seal Beach, and then I moved here back in I think like 2008 or so. So I'm a SoCal kid. I'm from this area.
Kris, thank you so much for the interview, man, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course.
Let me get a picture of your
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So even Kris doesn't know if they can vote these 4 members out of city council. He doesn't know. He doesn't think it's possible because the army of stupid is great. The army of stupid is strong in Huntington Beach. Folks, we need to teach these people a lesson in reality. All of this is, I mean, the worse it gets for the United States, the better it is for California independence, but I don't think a lot of you realize that yet. There's a petition out. I hope you guys signed it. There's another petition coming out next year from another independence group. And I'll tell you right now, this movement, Cal Exit, the new Cal Exit, it's unstoppable. We are always going to be pushing for California independence. Period. Hal, back to you.
Thank you, Shankar. All right, since pointing out the painfully obvious seems to be our running theme this week, I gotta ask, is there anyone out there that really thinks America's fascist immigration crackdowns are really about crime and terrorism? Because if ICE is only chasing people of color, the Occam's razor answer is that it's all about the racism. But of course, we already know that in MAGA America, all people are not created equal, not entitled to due process, and even U.S. citizenship no longer makes you a real American. Check, please.
This is a California resistance action item, disruption of U.S. deportations. To report ICE agent activities or raids, or for help locating someone in ICE custody, call the ICIRR hotline at 1-855-435-7693. That's 1-855-435-7693. Hotline has multilingual operators.
And now, Red Star Report brings you another Pedro Baez report entitled 100 Days and Counting. Enjoy.
Well, here we are, 100 days and counting. Pedro Baez here with a special edition of the BR, the Baez Report. 100 days, we as this nation have had to endure an administration that is literally bent on causing chaos, on causing dysfunction, on causing the most miserable, and I mean miserable, time that we as Americans have ever had to endure in the history of this great nation. That's right. We have seen cuts to programs that benefit all of mankind. And we have had a president that has had the gall to deport American citizens ages of 2, 4, and 7 out of this country. Now, supposedly, we have heard from the border czar that when asked the deportees about their children, they said, oh no, we're going to take them. Well, we found out that that was an outright lie. They never agreed to the deportation of their children. Second of all, everyone is entitled to due process. That's right. When you are charged with allegations of improper behavior, you are entitled under the Constitution to go before a judge with representation and plead your case. This didn't happen. And we're still wondering about Mr. Garcia, who is in El Salvador. When is he going to come back? When is he going to be on American soil again? Questions that need to be asked. These 100 days have brought nothing, again, of misery, conflict, and dysfunction to all of us as Americans. We have to wonder how much longer this is going to happen. When will it stop? We've been protesting. There are many decisions in the court awaiting to be overturned and to be given justice to the American people. That's right. We are the plaintiffs, and the defendant is Donald J. Trump and his administration. How much longer are we going to have to endure this dysfunction? Now, we hear from the National Health Institute that research to combat diseases like diabetes, like liver cancer, and all other forms of cancer have been canceled. We've also heard and have been privy to the fact that now food banks are going to go empty and Americans will starve to death. What kind of a future is that for this country? What do you say? These 100 days have been nothing but misery for all of us. I can't stress that enough. I could go on, but we all know what's been happening. I'm Pedro Baez, and that's the Baez Report for this day of the 29th of April, 2025. Thank you for listening, and be careful out there.
Our thanks to KPFK newsman and legend Pedro Baez. Glad to have you on the team.
Other important news out of California, proposing an initiative to have California become an independent country. Secretary of State Dr. Shirley Ann Weber announced that the proponent of a new initiative was cleared to begin collecting petition signatures on January 23rd of this year, so on Thursday. The AG prepares the legal title and the summary that is required to appear on the initiative petitions. Official language is complete. The AG forwards it to the proponent and to the Secretary of State. Then the initiative circulates for signatures, which is where it's at now. If this is enacted, it will be on the November 2028 ballot should California leave the United States and become a free and independent country. If at least 50% of registered voters participate in that election and at least 55% say yes, it would constitute a vote of no confidence in the United States of America. So if you live in California, do you want to become an independent country? I am so curious to find out if this goes through in the next 4 years.
90.7 KPFK, Los Angeles.
For Pacifica News, I'm Hal Lohr with the Pacifica News Update. The Trump administration is currently reviewing the curriculum of a sex education program in California for, quote, medical accuracy and age appropriateness, end quote. A move that sparked backlash from the LGBTQ community worried about sexual health information being censored. Last week, California was asked to submit all educational materials from a federally funded personal responsibility education program to the Administration for Children and Families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The Department of Health provides $75 million in annual funding to PrEP programs across the U.S. With the stated goal, these programs are to prevent adolescent pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. California's PrEP program provides sexual health education to young people ages 10 to 19 with the focus on reaching those who are low income, experiencing homelessness, in foster care, in the juvenile justice system, or identify as LGBTQ+. According to the California Department of Public Health, who say the PrEP curriculum has been shown to influence youth to delay sexual activity, increase condom or contraceptive use, and to reduce the number of sexual partners. But officials at the department believe the administration's probe into the curriculum is just a further thinly veiled attempt to erase mention of the transgender community, transgender healthcare, and different gender identities and pronouns as part of their calculated political attack against transgender and non-binary people. In January, Donald Trump issued an executive order saying that the government would only recognize two genders, male and female. That order effectively erased federal recognition of transgender people and weakened non-discrimination protections under the Affordable Care Act, giving healthcare providers and insurers more leeway to deny services to transgender individuals. Trump has also challenged California law, which prevents school districts from notifying parents if their child asks to use a different name or pronoun in the classroom, as the regime moves to promote the forced outing of student gender identities to parents. But the California Department of Public Health says that the point of California's PrEP program is to provide valuable lessons on abstinence, contraception, sexually transmitted infections, and healthy relationships and decision-making. In California trade news, Governor Gavin Newsom said he is directing his administration to look at new opportunities to expand trade as California seeks a workaround to Donald Trump's damaging import tariffs. As the largest importer and second largest exporter among U.S. states, with over $675 billion in two-way trade, California holds significant global economic influence. Therefore, California, with the world's fifth largest economy, plays a critical role in driving U.S. economic growth. And if the supply chain backlash following the worldwide COVID pandemic is any indicator, potentially could suffer heavy economic losses in a global trade war. So Trump's ill-conceived tariffs could have a major impact by increasing costs for California businesses, disrupting global supply chains, driving import-export contracts away from California ports, and putting unnecessary pressure across California's vital industries. In a post on X, Newsom addressed the U.S. global trading partners, obviously distancing California from the new U.S. tariff policies by writing, "California is here and ready to talk." It comes after a Fox News report revealed that Newsom is directing California to pursue strategic relationships with other countries, announcing retaliatory tariffs against the U.S., urging them to exclude California-made products from those taxes. The White House imposed a 10% baseline tariff on all imports, including those from U.S. allies in non-economically active regions, along with higher rates for countries with large trade surpluses against the U.S. The tariffs include a 34% tax on imports from China, a 20% tax on imports from the European Union, 25% from South Korea, 24% on Japan, and 32% on Taiwan. Mexico and Canada, from which most U.S. produce imports come, are exempt from Trump's latest tariff, but the 25% tariffs that Trump levied on both countries last month will remain intact. Trump's tariffs have already caused volatility, with Wall Street recording some of its worst days since 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic was in full swing. Meanwhile, China hit back with a 34% retaliatory tariff in the first signs of an all-out trade war that could cripple imports and exports, as other nations are now also mulling over retaliatory tariffs. So the Newsom administration is justifiably concerned that California industry could lose billions of dollars as countries like China, India, and the European Union impose retaliatory tariffs. Those retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods are expected to hit California especially hard, with major impacts on agriculture, manufacturing, and trade, according to the San Francisco Chronicle and Los Angeles Times. Gavin Newsom said in video posted to X, Donald Trump's tariffs do not represent all Americans, and on behalf of 40 million Americans that live in the great state of California, the tentpole of the U.S. economy, 14% of U.S. GDP, the fifth largest economy in the world, the dominant manufacturing state in America, our state of mind is around supporting stable trading relationships with the globe. And that's why today I've directed my administration to look at new opportunities to expand trade and to remind our trading partners around the globe that California remains a stable partner. In a press release, he added, California leads the nation as the #1 state for agriculture and manufacturing, and it's our workers, families, and farmers who stand to lose the most from this Trump tax hike and trade war. To our international partners, as the fifth largest economy in the world, the Golden State will remain a steady, reliable partner for generations to come, no matter the turbulence coming out of Washington. California is not Washington, D.C. So the question is, will California really go its own way on trade policy with Governor Gavin Newsom drawing a clear line between California and Washington, D.C., as global markets reel from President Donald Trump's sweeping U.S. tariffs? Will California, the world's fifth largest economy, continue to act more like an independent nation as Governor Gavin Newsom defies Trump's tariffs and pursues independent trade deals with China, Canada, and Mexico? This is unknown. But for now, Newsom has stepped forward with a message. California is here and ready to talk. At this moment, listener-supported KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles would like to remind you that we are just that, listener-supported, by people like you that recognize the need for an independent, non-corporate media. So please, go to kpfk.org and donate what you can to help KPFK keep these airwaves free. Or go to our phone lines at 818-985-5735 and make your pledge today. Because radio silence for a Los Angeles icon like KPFK would be a loss for all of us. In California climate news, in an executive order signed last week, President Donald Trump called out California for energy policies he said threaten American economic and national security. The executive order, titled Protecting American Energy from State Overreach, directs the Attorney General to identify state laws that get in the way of the use of dirty domestic fossil fuel energy. In that executive order, Trump specifically noted that laws addressing climate change, environmental justice, and greenhouse gas or carbon emissions should be prioritized by the Attorney General, referring to California as the example of a state with what he called radical requirements when it comes to carbon use. The order specifically states that California, for example, punishes carbon use by adopting impossible caps on the amount of carbon businesses may use, all but forcing businesses to pay large sums to trade carbon credits. In an obvious nod to U.S. fossil fuel industry propaganda and utter disregard for California's efforts to fight the devastation of global climate change, Donald Trump's executive order targets California environmental protections as un-American, stating that these laws and policies weaken our national security and devastate Americans by driving up energy costs for families coast to coast, despite some of these families not living or voting in these states with these crippling policies. Attorney General Pam Bondi has 60 days to submit a report to the President on actions taken against such state laws and recommend other presidential legislative actions that would be necessary to cancel the enforcement of California's laws. All this while many Californians still await FEMA relief from climate change-driven wildfires, and the Trump regime vows to reopen gross polluting coal-fired power plants across America and push for more drill baby drill, Gulf of Mexico-style offshore oil exploitation off our California coast. Your tax dollars at work. Just in case you were thinking that American corporate media was purposely understating the devolved state of American democracy and wondering how the world sees the American government today, a just-released annual report on the global state of democracy has stated that by 2026, the United States will not score as a democracy when next year's annual report is released to the United Nations. In fact, according to Stefan Lindberg, head of the Varieties of Democracy project run out of Sweden's University of Gothenburg, if the U.S. continues to go the way it's going today, democracy there will not last another 6 months. The Varieties of Democracy project includes 31 million data points for 202 countries, compiled by 4,200 scholars and other contributors measuring 600 different attributes of democracy. Lindberg happens to be in the U.S. this week presenting this year's report, which only includes data through the end of 2024 to the UN General Assembly, with the additional warning that some grim global milestones were breached this past year. The number of autocracies in the world at 91 have just surpassed the number of democracies at 88 on this list for the first time in 2 decades, with nearly 3/4 of human beings now living under some form of autocratic rule, where one person has unconstrained power, the highest rate in 5 decades. And for the United States, the report adds an additional caveat. This year's version does not include events in 2025, meaning it does not cover the start of Donald Trump's latest presidential term. But it refers to the ongoing events in the U.S. as unprecedented, mentioning Trump's pardoning of 1,500 criminals who support him, firing independent agency watchdogs without process, purging apolitical police and military brass, ignoring laws, unilaterally deleting federal programs, and even a whole organization created by the U.S. Congress where the Trump regime has moved past several new milestones. Now Donald Trump has just called his predecessor's pardons void and vacated. He's demanding prosecutions of the media and certain high-profile adversaries. He's threatened numerous universities with sanctions. He's invoked a 227-year-old war measures law during peacetime to deport accused gang members without due process, and when that deportation plan wound up in court, he openly defied the court order, cracking the ultimate constitutional safeguard. According to the Varieties of Democracy report, Stefan Lindberg says that as president, Donald Trump is now doing the same things as Erdogan in Turkey, Orban in Hungary, and Modi in India. Lindberg cautions that, needless to say, a number of Americans might find his assessment controversial, offensive even, but some of his U.S. peers readily concur. Either way, if nothing changes the pace of the Trump regime, America will no longer be counted as a democratic country by the end of summer.
back with the author of the book A Prequel, now in paperback, Rachel Maddow. Where are we now? If history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but you see patterns. Where are we in this process compared to this?
We are in the midst of an attempted authoritarian overthrow of the U.S. government, and it is not by an insurgent movement like it was in the era that I write about in Prequel. It's the party in power. American fascism is a real thing. It's recurrent. Right now, it's in the White House, and it's never been there before. But we know how to fight against fascists, and it depends on the American people loving liberty and loving democracy and knowing that what the founders gave us is something that we're not going to squander. We're not going to be the generation that loses it.
Wow. Apologies to Rachel Maddow, but you did squander it, and you did lose it, and you and MSNBC profited from that. So seriously, the saddest part about that clip is probably how many people in the California resistance movement still bother to listen to this kind of rosy propaganda. It's time for talking points. This is Talking Points, and the truth is, I'll never understand the gullibility of some of my dear friends in the California resistance for the corporate left's downplay of American fascism. I mean, before we even begin the discussion, it seems like it's just too hard for people to understand that America is not on the verge of becoming an authoritarian white supremacist Christo-fascist nation led by a dictator. America already is an authoritarian white supremacist Christo-fascist nation led by a dictator who is now working out the details and consolidating power. And despite what any partisan corporate media says, the reality is not a case of it being almost too late for an America marching in a fascist direction where there's still time for MSNBC's usual cast of characters to ride in at the last moment and save the day 4 years from now. You gotta get it through your heads. In America, in 2025, that let's save U.S. democracy ship has already sailed. The USA has a fascist regime in power right now, put there after years of systematic voter suppression and gerrymandering. That's game over. So with that in mind, and if you consider yourself in any way part of California's resistance, the hashtag #NewCalExit question goes, can a California resistance trust America's establishment left in the fight against American fascism? I mean, the short answer I have from a California independence stance, concerned primarily for 40 million Californians, is obvious. No. The very idea that any U.S. corporate donor-funded millionaire congressperson or governor from back east can win any fight from inside America's now shattered democratic system is a fantasy. Or a fundraising scheme, because right now, at the end of times for the America we used to at least recognize, we already know the overarching truth. If the Democratic Party or Bernie Sanders or Rachel Maddow or any of the other Beltway corporatized bobbleheads were actually capable of taking the fight to Trump and his MAGA base in the first place, American democracy couldn't be canceled. I mean, does any true Californian not understand that if the USA was actually a functional country with a reasonably enlightened electorate, an illiterate would-be dictator like Donald Trump would never have been elected president in the first place? So really, can the California resistance trust America's establishment left in the fight against American fascism? Not if the establishment left's battle plan to fight American fascism involves leaving a corrupted U.S. political system in place while they hawk their latest books, stage feel-good rallies and concerts to line their pockets with campaign donations, and of course, waiting 2 to 4 years until the next election. I can see the campaign slogan now, can't you? I know I failed to stop your pain and suffering as America descended to the 7th level of fascist hell, but if you just send me another $20, I know we can win this time. And oh, by the way, buy my new book, 'cause that plan is working so well. Or maybe given the Beltway media's inability to envision any form of U.S. paradigm shift, they could tell the truth with slogans like, "We tried profiting from America's de-evolution into fascism and we're all out of passive-aggressive options. But this is the American two-party system and we're all you got, so ka-ching!" I know none of this instills much confidence. I'll ask you again. Can the California resistance trust America's establishment left in the fight against American fascism? I don't know. Could we trust them to stand up for the Palestinians or vote for universal health care? Could we trust them to protect a woman's right to choose or a black person's right not to get randomly shot by the police? Could we trust the American corporate left to fight the fossil fuel industry on climate change or the banks and Wall Street on homelessness and food prices? How's about immigration, gay rights, gun control, Social Security? Should I go on? Because despite the catastrophic failures the Democratic Party, the American establishment left, and their embedded corporate media would have you believe that if the people just come together to protest, fundraise, and then vote in the next election, America will be just fine. But even that is a narrative that conveniently forgets the fundamental American truth. Over half of all American voters outside of California chose fascism. They hate California, they despise even our most basic progressive values, and they will always be there to fight against everything we ever try to do. Forever. Which means despite what the California resistance is being told on cable TV, the absolute best future Californians can expect from being part of the USA is that old status quo of anger, gridlock, and never-ending struggle in a hostile America. Period. So the question, can the California resistance trust the American left in the fight against American fascism? The answers are, from a California resistance perspective, could we ever really trust them? And feel free to add the hashtag #NewCalExit answer of, and why would we ever trust them again? In an independent California resistance answer that realizes the fight for the soul of America is a lost cause in a dystopian political war without end that can only devour further generations of California lives for an uncertain future that we can leave behind if we have to. A resignation that the true fight against U.S. fascism is here in California, and that fight can only be empowered by the realization that our future doesn't need a hostile America, its dysfunctional federal government, or its corporate media propaganda to realize a better future than the USA, fascist or not, will ever have to offer. This is Talking Points. That's podcast number 7 for the 2025 season. For more Red Star Report information, check out our website at redstarreport.com. Please subscribe to our Red Star Report YouTube channel, check us out on TikTok, go to our Red Star Report Facebook page, Twitter page, and Instagram page, and give us a like and follow. Because if you want to support the real California independence movement, hashtag #NewCalExit Media Group, it's all about the algorithms. And seriously, click that link below and pledge support for our friends at listener-supported radio KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles. Or better yet, call them up at 818-985-5735 and make a donation. And it won't hurt my feelings if you tell them they need to put Red Star Report on the radio. Because KPFK both deserves your support and a great new show. Our thanks to all our Red Star Rebels for watching. We are Red Star Report.